In an episode that has left viewers and commentators reeling, Whoopi Goldberg took center stage on The View for a discussion that quickly evolved into a full-blown firestorm over the issue of transgender women competing in women's sports. With guest Dylan Mulvaney, an outspoken figure whose very presence has polarized opinions on the panel, the conversation delved deep into politics, biology, and personal beliefs, igniting controversy with every passing minute. The episode, which aired on a brisk Monday night, set the stage for a debate that was as unpredictable as it was incendiary. The topic at hand was one of the most divisive issues of our time: should transgender women be allowed to compete in women's sports? With mounting public debate and ever-evolving policies on gender and athletic participation, The View found itself at the epicenter of a cultural battle. The conversation kicked off when a panelist referenced comments made by California Governor Gavin Newsom, who had recently criticized the participation of transgender athletes in women's sports as deeply unfair to biological women. Whoopi Goldberg, known for her no-holds-barred style, instantly took offense to what she characterized as a simplistic and misguided view of the issue. "If you don't know anything about our bodies, you don't know how it works, you're assuming that women can't do anything," Goldberg declared with unmistakable vehemence. In that moment, the stage was set for a debate that would soon spiral out of control. Dylan Mulvaney, whose rise to prominence has been both celebrated and scorned, was brought on to share his perspective. Despite his lack of athletic experience, he humorously noted, "The last time I played a sport, I was 6 years old, and I assigned myself as the nurse." Mulvaney's presence was meant to represent the voices of transgender individuals in a discussion that many felt had been dominated by biological arguments and outdated notions of gender. As the discussion unfolded, it quickly became clear that the differing viewpoints on the panel would lead to an explosive exchange of opinions. Goldberg's comments, laced with both passion and controversy, seemed to outshine all others. She went on to label those who opposed the participation of transgender athletes as a bunch of idiots, adding further fuel to an already volatile debate. Whoopi Goldberg has never been one to mince words. On The View, she fired off a series of blistering remarks that challenged the very foundation of the argument against transgender women in sports. Her stance was unequivocal. She believed that the criticism was not only misguided but rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of human biology and empathy. God doesn't make mistakes. The challenge is not to the trans people, it's to the people who are not trans. That is who God is looking to see how you treat people, Goldberg said, her voice a mix of indignation and conviction. For Goldberg, the debate was not just about fairness in sports, it was about respect, dignity, and the way society treats those who dare to live authentically. Her powerful statement resonated with many viewers, who saw it as a call for compassion and understanding in a time when transgender rights are under intense scrutiny. Yet, as the debate raged on, some critics argued that her comments, while passionate, glossed over the complexities of competitive sports. After all, the argument isn't simply about individual rights, but also about maintaining a level playing field for athletes who have trained their whole lives under certain biological conditions. On the other side of the debate, Dylan Mulvaney brought a contrasting perspective to the table. Although he had little athletic experience to draw on, his role on the panel was to represent the experiences of transgender individuals who face a barrage of criticism in everyday life. Mulvaney's tone was measured, and he often deflected strong opinions by noting his limited background in sports. "The last time I played a sport, I was 6 years old, and I was just the nurse," he quipped, eliciting laughter from some of the panelists and lightening the mood, if only momentarily. His self-deprecating humor served to underscore the fact that, for many transgender individuals, the debate over athletic participation is not something they can fully address from personal experience. Yet, his presence was crucial. It represented a demographic that has been both marginalized and vilified in discussions about sports and gender. While Mulvaney refrained from offering a definitive stance, his reluctance to take a hardline position was interpreted by some as a desire to avoid further polarization. Instead, he attempted to highlight that the conversation should be informed by scientific evidence and a nuanced understanding of human physiology rather than a blanket dismissal of transgender rights. Of the interplay between Whoopi Goldberg and Dylan Mulvaney on The View quickly became a microcosm of the larger national debate. Goldberg's fiery rhetoric clashed with Mulvaney's cautious, somewhat humorous approach, creating an atmosphere charged with both tension and the promise of meaningful dialogue. Throughout the conversation, other panelists contributed their opinions, some echoing Goldberg's sentiment, others urging a more balanced consideration of the issues at hand. The discussion touched on various dimensions: the biology of gender, the fairness of competition, and the broader societal implications of excluding transgender individuals from women's sports. One of the most contentious points was the argument that allowing transgender women to compete in women's sports would ultimately harm cisgender women. Critics of transgender participation in sports often point to examples from various athletic events: disc golf, track and field, soccer, swimming, and powerlifting, where they claim men have an advantage. However, Goldberg and her supporters countered that such arguments fail to account for the complexities of hormone therapy, muscle mass, and the myriad factors that contribute to athletic performance. People assume that if you're a trans woman, you'll automatically have an unfair advantage, Goldberg argued. But there's so much more to it: there's science, there's biology, and there's the human spirit. Her words, delivered with characteristic passion, resonated deeply with those who believe that a fair and inclusive approach to sports is possible. Yet, they also sparked fierce rebuttals from those who worry that competitive fairness is being sacrificed on the altar of political correctness. The debate over transgender athletes is not happening in a vacuum. It is part of a broader cultural war over transgender rights that has been intensifying over the past few years. From debates in school board meetings to legislative battles in state capitals, the issue of trans participation in sports has become a flashpoint for discussions about gender, equality, and fairness. Whoopi Goldberg's vehement defense of transgender individuals on The View is emblematic of a larger movement that advocates for the inclusion and dignity of trans people in all aspects of society. Her comments, "God doesn't make mistakes. The challenge is not to the trans people, it's to the people who are not trans," are a rallying cry for those who believe that transgender individuals deserve the same respect and opportunities as everyone else. For many, her stance is not just political, it's deeply personal, reflecting the struggles that countless trans people face every day. Legal experts, such as Professor Marcus Lee, have weighed in on the broader implications for sports policy. The debate over transgender athletes is emblematic of a larger challenge in our society, Professor Lee commented. It's not just about science, it's about values, fairness, and the recognition of individual rights. Policymakers need to strike a delicate balance between protecting the integrity of women's sports and ensuring that transgender athletes are treated with dignity and respect. Cultural critics also pointed out that the debate is as much about social justice as it is about athletic performance. Many argue that the exclusion of transgender athletes from competitive sports is a reflection of broader societal biases that must be confronted if we are to move toward a more equitable future. At the end of the day, one critic remarked, "It's about recognizing that everyone deserves a chance to compete and to be seen for who they truly are, regardless of the gender assigned at birth." No discussion about transgender athletes in women's sports can be divorced from the political climate of our times. Politicians, activists, and interest groups on both sides of the debate have been vocal in their opinions, using the issue as a rallying cry for broader ideological battles. Recent comments by figures such as Gavin Newsom have only added fuel to the fire, with each new statement triggering waves of response from both supporters and detractors. On The View, these political undercurrents were palpable. Goldberg's scathing rebuke of any notion that transgender women should be excluded from sports was not only a defense of trans rights but also a direct challenge to conservative viewpoints that prioritize biological determinism over inclusivity. Her remarks were laced with political implications, suggesting that those who oppose transgender participation are not only misinformed but are actively perpetuating injustice. The political dimension of the debate is complex and multifaceted. For many, the question of whether transgender women should be allowed to compete in women's sports is emblematic of larger battles over gender, equality, and the role of government in protecting individual rights. In this context, the conversation on The View becomes a microcosm of the national discourse, a stage where competing ideologies collide in a battle for the future of sports, society, and democratic values. Looking ahead, the debate over transgender athletes is likely to continue evolving as new research emerges and policies are updated. Sports organizations across the globe are actively reviewing their guidelines, seeking to create a framework that balances inclusion with fairness. This is a challenging task, one that requires input from a wide range of experts, including medical professionals, legal scholars, and athletes themselves. The insights offered by experts during the View discussion suggest that a more nuanced approach is needed, one that takes into account the complexities of hormone therapy, physical performance, and the lived experiences of transgender athletes. It is clear that a one-size-fits-all solution will not suffice, and that ongoing dialogue and research are critical to shaping a policy that is both fair and inclusive. For transgender athletes, the promise of equal opportunity is a long-sought goal. As debates continue, it is imperative that voices from within the trans community, like Dylan Mulvaney's, are given the space to be heard. Their perspectives offer invaluable insight into the challenges they face on a daily basis and remind us that the conversation is not just about sports, but about fundamental human rights. We've journeyed through the explosive, off-the-rails debate on The View, where Whoopi Goldberg and Dylan Mulvaney clashed over the issue of transgender women in sports. Their conversation, marked by passionate declarations, measured caution, and unyielding emotion, is a microcosm of a national debate that is far from settled. From Whoopi's searing dismissal of outdated views to Dylan's humble, self-deprecating remarks about his own athletic past, every moment of the discussion has added fuel to a fire that shows no signs of burning out. This debate touches on science, politics, culture, and the very essence of what it means to be inclusive in today's society. It challenges us to re-examine our assumptions about gender, fairness, and the boundaries of competition, and it calls on all of us to engage in a conversation that is as complex as it is necessary. While opinions remain deeply divided, one thing is clear: the conversation is only beginning. As new policies are developed, as further research sheds light on the nuances of athletic performance, and as public attitudes continue to evolve, the legacy of this debate will shape the future of sports and social justice for generations to come. Whoopi Goldberg's fierce words, Dylan Mulvaney's candid admission of his limited athletic past, and the broader cultural implications of their discussion have already left an indelible mark on the public consciousness. Whether you agree with one side or the other, the debate is a vital reminder that our society is in the midst of a profound transformation, one where old paradigms are being questioned and new ideas are taking root. As we look to the future, we must continue to challenge ourselves to find common ground, to listen to voices on all sides, and to embrace the complexity of a world where the lines between biology, identity, and fairness are continually redrawn. The conversation on transgender athletes in women's sports is not a battle to be won by one side alone. It is a dialogue that requires empathy, understanding, and a commitment to evolving with the times. In the end, the fiery debate on The View is a call to action, a rallying cry for everyone who believes that sports, like society, should be a space where every individual is respected, where every talent is celebrated, and where the pursuit of excellence is measured not by rigid categories, but by the strength of the human spirit. Thank you for joining us on this exhaustive journey through one of the most explosive debates in recent memory. Stay tuned for more in-depth analysis, exclusive interviews, and the latest updates in entertainment and cultural news. The conversation continues, and we'll be here every step of the way, breaking down the stories that shape our world one passionate discussion at a time. If you like this news and want more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with all your friends. Until next time, sensationalist family.